Well, pleasant good morning to all you sports fans, and welcome to the PR Man and the Coach Talking Ball on the BallFather podcast presented by Sportskeeda. I'm Reggie Roberts, your host, former NFL PR man, longtime NFL observer, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mike Smith, former head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, winningest coach in Falcons history. A lot of good ball on the TV this weekend, Coach, and last night.
God dang, Reg, you're right about that. It was a good weekend. They get better and better as we get closer to the playoffs, don't they?
It's getting better. Every time you think that you kind of understand in the league, you think, well, okay, this team's going to win, that team's going to win. Perfect example was last night. I'm thinking, okay, Eagles are playing at home, primetime game. They're playing a division rival that's not playing that well. I'm thinking, okay, the Eagles win by at least 10 points. But that didn't happen. It didn't happen like that last night. I mean, the Eagles turned the ball over 3 times in the second half. Really bad turnovers. I mean, the 2 interceptions. I mean, it just was bad. And now we have no undefeated teams in the NFL. So that's I guess the 1972 Dolphins are happy about that. But
they popped the cork last night, Reg.
It did pop. They did pop the cork. But it's to me it feels like a missed opportunity for the Eagles. I mean,
absolutely.
It is. It just feels like a missed opportunity.
Yeah, they did not take care of the ball last night. And, there was a real egregious missed face mask call, too, that could have changed the game. And, I know that everybody in Philly is going to be raising Cain this morning on the airwaves, all up and down the East Coast. And, it'll bring the discussion back about should they be able to have replay on penalties. So it'll be something that, that cost them the game possibly.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. It really did. It really
so
did.
That'll be back in the news here without a doubt. I'm surprised they didn't riot there in Philly last night.
Well, I tell you where they are still talking about. They're still talking about that game that took place in Buffalo on Sunday. I mean, that might have been the game of the year. I can't remember in recent history seeing a game that good that was back and forth. And at first, I was sitting in my living room, I was thinking, well, maybe I'll watch the Chiefs and the Jags. And the Chiefs it looked like early the Chiefs were gonna, kind of go run away with them. But I tell you what, that might have been the best game of the year that Vikings will get. It's took like, they get remarkable one-handed grab, an end zone fumble, last second touch interception. But the Vikings hung on overtime to beat the Bills 33-30. Vikings improved 8-1 and are now tied, obviously, with the Eagles for the best record in football. There were so many stars in that game. Patrick Peterson probably had a Hall of Fame career. He played great. Justin Jefferson, arguably one of the top receivers in football. He played great. The Vikings entered that game, Mike, with all the stuff hanging over them. They're 7-1, but they don't have a signature win. They haven't beat a really good team. But here's what the Vikings have done. They've won 7 straight games. They've won all those games by 1 score, and they've come from behind in 5 of those 7 games. So let me ask you this: for a coach who won a lot of close games and who prides his team on taking care of the football and winning with good defense, what's your take on the Vikings? Are they obviously, you are what your record says they are one of the NFL's top echelon teams who could be, one of the finalists when we get down to the end of the season.
Yeah, man, that was a heck of a game yesterday, Reg. Maybe the best of the season. There's, like you said, so many ebbs and flows. But I'll say this about the Vikings. When you win close games, you're playing with extreme confidence. It shows their ability to find a way to win the close ones, and that's what they're doing. And that's what the good teams in the NFL is about. It's about winning the 1-score games. They're finding a way to do it. And you got to give credit to Coach Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Atafamansal, the general manager. He has done an outstanding job, both of them, in changing the culture there in Minnesota. They went 180 degrees from the previous regime in terms of how they operated. And this team looks like a team that's bought in. Don't you agree? I mean, they have changed the culture.
They play hard.
Buy-in.
Yeah, they play hard. They play smart. They've got a good mix of young guys. They got a good mix of old guys. they kept playing. Patrick Peterson, who obviously I'm gonna like Patrick Peterson because
we can tell you, hey, you got a crush on him, Reg.
I always have.
Yeah, good player.
And I don't know if you caught the two guys that I mentioned for them, Justin Jefferson and Patrick Peterson. They have one thing in common. They do have one thing in common. They both the LSU Tigers.
Yeah, I know. Down there close to New Orleans, right up there in Baton Rouge.
Yes. Yep. So anyway, it was an amazing thing with the quarterback. Cousins threw for 357 yards, and he gets a lot of criticism too. People are saying, well, he's a game manager. He never makes. That guy made some incredible throws in that game, Mike. He really did. He made some great throws. He made some great decisions. And I don't know if he should be in the conversation of the top 5 quarterbacks. Maybe he should be, maybe he shouldn't be. But I tell you what, I like what they're doing on offense. I like the confidence that they're playing with, and I like what they're doing on defense. And I might have to revitalize my picks. Going on right, that's going to determine who's going to eat where in our bet we got going. But I like the way they played. I really do like the way they played.
Yeah, they played extremely well, and right now they're in a great situation in the North. They've got a 5-game lead, I believe, in the loss column. So, they're in position to win that division. They have to play the Cowboys, the Patriots, the Jets, the Giants, which will be tough, but they should be favored in all those games. But there'll be toss-ups. There'll be the spread won't be leaning one way or the other. But they've also got the Packers, the Lions, the Colts, and the Bears. So they'll be heavily favored in most of those games. So I don't see how they can't go ahead and finish this out in the NFC North. 3 of their 8 remaining games, I don't see them losing those. And they got a 5-game lead. So they're playing really, really good ball, Reg. They are. And Cousins to Jefferson, that combination has been so efficient, man. That catch, come this, I think it's the Friday night or the Saturday night before the Super Bowl at the honors show.
Yeah.
The NFL honors show.
Right.
That's going to be shown over and over and over. That could be the play of the year. That was a circus catch. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. 4th down, game on the line, crowd roaring. You're on the road, 4th and 18. That guy makes that one-handed grab with Cam Lewis, grappled all over him. They fall to the turf, fighting for the ball. Jefferson, you mentioned finished the game 193 yards on 10 catches, 1 touchdown. Now it's the first player in NFL history to record 20 100-yard games in his first 3 seasons, breaking a tie with Odell Beckham Jr. and former Vikings star, the Pro Football Hall of Fame wide receiver Randy Moss. You mentioned, how would you like to have that guy? How'd you like to coach that guy? I mean, we coached the guy you coached the guy that was in that class.
Yeah, absolutely. But Julio Jones, no doubt about it. But, Justin is off to he's off to a great start through the first half of the season. And let me tell you, he and Tyreek Hill are both within reach of breaking Calvin Johnson's record of 1,964 yards. We could have our first 2,000-yard receiver. Now, it might have an asterisk because of the extra game. But right now, they're on course to do that. Jefferson's averaging 117 yards, just a little bit over 117 yards a game, and Hill's at 114.8. That's going to be something that's going to be fun to watch. If those guys stay healthy and their quarterbacks stay healthy, we could have a record that nobody thought would be broken is going to be broken.
Can you just imagine? Just think about that. We've had a couple of guys. Derrick Henry has run for 2,000 yards. O.J. Simpson's run for 2,000 yards. Eric Dixon ran for 2,000 yards. I think Adrian Peterson ran for 2,000 yards one season. I think he did. Or is that right? I think he did.
You're right, Reg.
I think there's been 6 guys to do it. But the way he plays and they line him up. They don't just line him up wide. They line him up in the slot. They put flanker. He plays the X. He plays the Y. I mean, he's a talented guy. And it looks like the guy who's covering Mike is like 2 or 3 yards trailing him every time he's out there. He's an incredible route runner. And he's tough. He's got great hands. But you're right. That catch will be the feature catch at the NFL Honors Dinner at the Super Bowl here in Arizona.
If it's not, I can't. If it's not, I can't wait to see the one that is. Yeah. Because it's going to happen here in the second half of the season. And, you mentioned they moving them all around. And that says a lot about Kevin O'Connell and what he's doing with his coaching staff in terms of finding ways to get the playmakers the ball. And it's going to be interesting to watch those two guys go down to the end of the season and see who's going to win the top receiver and who's going to have the most yards. And it's not out of reach that there could be two 2,000-yard receivers.
Right. We've never had it. You're right. We could have two. You're right. Yeah. The way the Dolphins are playing, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. They're playing good ball. They're throwing it around the yard. And, they're right in the thick of things in that division race as well.
Well, we can't have a podcast unless we talk about the GOAT. And, there's you talk about a guy who's had a season that looks like an amusement park ride. It's been up and down and up and down. We're talking about Buccaneers quarterback Tom Brady. I mean, he's had a tough couple of weeks, and the team hadn't played that well, and then all of a sudden, he shows up in Germany, where the NFL's played the first game in Germany over the weekend, and he looked like him out there. Very efficient with the ball, accurate, hitting guys in stride. His guys are catching the ball. They got a little bit of a run game, and they had a little bit of a scare there because my man Leonard Fournette didn't have his paperwork together. He almost didn't make the trip.
I know. How does that happen? Right?
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
We played like. Can you imagine when we're getting ready to play in London? We got a guy that.
Yeah, not a guy. Our starting running back.
Ain't gonna get on the bird because he ain't got no paperwork. What the hell?
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Hey, we might be seeing the beginning of a running back controversy, though. Let me tell you, Rachaad White went in there, stepped in. Hey, he was toting the pigskin. He was running. He could do it.
He played great. I mean, he really did. We profiled him on Sportskeeda earlier in the year, and he was talking about early year, played at Arizona State. He was telling us earlier about after contact, he's getting 5-6 yards, tough to bring down, got a little wiggle to him. But let's we'll talk about him a little bit. Yeah,
from the baseball story. No, he had a good game, and they know he can play. And hey, Rex, how about that game in Germany?
I mean, they pull out. They jump into a 21-6 lead, and then the Seahawks they've been won 4 straight games coming in. They made a little bit of a game, but scored 13 unanswered points. But but Brady does what he always does, okay, or what he's done over the longevity of his career. They're up 21-16. He gets the ball back with just under 4 minutes to play. He gets a couple first downs, ices the game. Okay, they get on the bird, they fly back home. And the great thing about this win, okay, not only are they even at 5-5, they're 500 because of the division, as we've talked about on our podcast so many times about how bad the division is. But they're 5-5 and they're going on their bye week, so they get he gets a chance to rest. They get a chance to get some guys back, and then they get to come back. I think they play the Browns when they. So it's set up kind of nicely for them, Mike. I mean, it's all set up kind of nice for them to kind of make a run. They won 2 in a row. They won in Berlin. Brady's getting his situation going. I think the Bucs are going a little run here. What do you think?
I do, but I got to say one thing about the game in Germany. Why didn't they play it in October? Oktoberfest. I mean, could you seen that place rocking and rolling if it was during Oktoberfest?
Yeah. You're right.
There would have been some suds. There were suds flowing. Don't get me wrong, but hey, they could have made some real paper on that beer in October.
Yeah, October.
So, Reg, I got to tell you, I know you're Saints. You picked them to win the NFC in our pick'em last week. I don't think they got a chance. I think it's setting up really nice for Tom Brady and the Buccaneers right now. And we've talked about it. The South and the North are the 2 weakest divisions. Only one team's going to come out of those divisions. And that means you got to win it. And it lines up very well. You mentioned, they got the bye week, and then 5 of the 7 teams that they have to play in the second half of the season have losing records. Yeah. So I see they've got the easiest path on paper, They got to stay healthy. There's no doubt about that. Everybody has to do that. But we mentioned the running back. Tom Brady has had 2 games in a row where he's had his trademark last drive in the fourth quarter, brings him back. Hey, don't give him the ball at the end of the game. Find a way to get it to 0-0 or under 5 seconds, and they got 80 yards to go. Because if not, he's going to figure out a way to get it done. I think that, I hate to say it, Reg, but your hometown Saints, it ain't happening, bro.
Yeah, I've already made preparations for myself to take you to dinner some places. I knew you were going to win because, you're the head coach and you always look. I get excited when you play well and you get.
No, hey, Reg, this is like everybody's looking at this division because it's the only one that we were different. So we're going to have to talk about it, and it's even better because you picked the Saints. And I think we might see some bags come out. For the Aints here before the season's over.
I think their season's over. I mean, there was a story yesterday talking about fans and season ticket holders are saying they made a mistake and they want Dennis Allen fired. I don't think we're there yet. I mean, the problem is,
man.
Yeah, it was all
about firing the coach halfway through his first season.
There was a long story about it wasn't on a reputable website. It was just on one of these little,
somebody venting.
Somebody venting.
Okay.
Saying he's over his head. And the guy. I mean, look, when you ain't got no quarterback and your whole offensive line's beat up. I mean, everybody's got injuries, but they kind of started a little bit behind the 8 ball because the quarterback never really got healthy and he got hurt in the first game of the year and they kept him out. And Anthony Dalton, he's got a really good career. But he's not the answer. He's not
on the back. He's on the backside of it. He's had a very good career there in Cincinnati. Found ways to win. Knock on him is that he never won a playoff game. For a long time. And Reg, if you don't have a quarterback in this league, you got no chance, as you know. And I think you saw that in the Falcons game this week. That was some poor quarterback play. I mean, that was bad.
All the way around.
Yeah.
All the way around. I mean, just we'll transit.
Sure, yeah, we can hook back up on that and talk about it maybe a little bit later. But again, the great thing about Mondays and Tuesdays is we get to analyze the heck out of the and talk about it. It's like we're in the barbershop, man.
Or the bar.
Or the bar, yep, okay. Yeah.
You're on the PR Man and the Coach Talking Ball on the BallFather podcast presented by Sports Kita. Speaking of quarterbacks, you talk about if you don't have a quarterback, you got no chance. Well, they don't have that problem in Kansas City. They obviously don't have that, that problem in Kansas City. The guy they got is leading the league. Patrick Mahomes, we're talking about, is leading the league in passing yards and touchdown passes. He kind of was, with the surgical-like efficiency, 26 to 35, 331 yards, 4 TDs to power the Chiefs past the Jaguars. I was looking at their schedule, okay? Talk about setting up nice. KC's got 8 games remaining, 5 of which are against teams with losing records, include they got 2 games against the Broncos. Now, those are tough. They're in the same division, and the Broncos typically play them pretty well. But I tell you what, Coach, you could make the argument week in and week out that Kansas City under Andy Reid, they're one of the most one of the NFL's most consistent teams week in and week out. I can't remember the last time we got on a podcast or we had a discussion about the Chiefs have dropped 3 games. They've lost 2 games. I don't know if they've lost 3 games under Andy since they've been there. And we know what they're after their bye week. I mean, they're something like 100 to 101 or after their bye week,
Put money on Andy Reid after the bye week. There's no doubt about that. His record,
right.
Yeah, I don't think he's lost but maybe 1 or 2 times after a bye week, and he's coached for 100 years.
But they've got some guys hurt. They've got some guys hurt on defense. They've got some guys hurt on offense. But he seemingly, that game, they won 27-17 over the weekend, but it wasn't even that close. That game kind of was over in the third quarter. It really was kind of, but still. So what do you think it is about Andy and the Chiefs and how do the Chiefs continually, manage to play at the consistent level that they seem to play it since he's been there?
Well, they're definitely the best team in the AFC, and I believe they're might be the best team in the NFL. I picked them to win the Super Bowl last week, so I do want everybody to remember that. I picked the Kansas City Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. When you got a quarterback that I think he's going to be the odds-on favorite again for the MVP, that's touching the ball on every play, so he's putting his mark on the game, and you put in Andy Reid and his offensive game planning, without a doubt, some of the most creative, toughest to defend in the history of the NFL. I mean, and he makes it fun, hey, the things he does on third down, the things he does in the red zone, he comes up with some kind of play that you haven't scouted it, that's for darn sure, because he's got a litany of plays that he can run on his game sheet. He's got one of the biggest game sheets if you when they're calling it, it's like it's 1,000 plays, but they're hard to game plan for. And when you got that athletic quarterback that's having another MVP season, they're going to be tough to beat. They're getting some really good play, but it's not consistent on defense. It's not as consistent as it needs to be. And if there's a chink in the armor, it's the consistency on defense. They've gotten really good play up front with Chris Jones and Curtis Dunlap, rushing the passer, but they're middle of the pack. They're 16th, 15th, 19th, and all the statistics that you really look at on defense. So they've been up and down. Now, Steve Spagnuolo does a great job. They've had some injuries on the defensive side of the ball, but I believe this. It goes through, on the AFC, it goes through Kansas City. I can't tell you where it's going to happen in the NFC, but I know I'm very confident that the Chiefs are going to be there unless something happens and they lose some players in the second half of the season.
It's interesting, Mike. Spagnuolo, was obviously a defensive. I know you know Coach Spagnuolo. I mean, he's good. You're right. The offense, is rules the day and runs the roost there. And you're right. They've always sort of been middle of the pack. But I tell you what, there was a thing this week I saw. I had the Today Show. The Today Show goes 3 hours now, and it was on here. I was here working on some stuff last week, and Craig Melvin, who's one of the Today Show hosts, went to Kansas City and interviewed Patrick Mahomes and interviewed Travis Kelce. And the Chiefs let him come in. Ted Cruz, who who's one of my top.
Ted, what a good guy.
Who's now the EVP of PR for the Chiefs, was telling me that Craig was going to come in there, and he brought his son. His son wants to be following his dad's footsteps, and he wanted to brought him there to the interview. So he was part of the interview, Kelce and Mahomes, and they were talking about how their offense is so, it looks like school kids playing in the schoolyard. And they said this. Kelce said this. He said, what we do? He said, we get to practice a little bit early, and we go on the other end of the field. Me and Patrick and some of the other offensive guys, and Andy kind of walks down there, and we just kind of experiment with stuff that's not in the playbook. We just experiment. We go off things that have happened in games, and they're going to show us this look. If we do this based on the look that they've shown on tape, we can score easily. I've never heard of that approach. I've never heard of a team going down like that, like an extra a recess practice before the big practice starts. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, and they really focus on third down and red zone. You can see that, and those are the money downs. You gotta win third down, and you gotta score touchdowns in the red zone, and nobody's better at it, and nobody has a library of plays, than Andy Reid, and he'll see something, and it'll be, oh gosh, I remember back at Northridge when I was at Northridge College, or wherever, when he was coaching college ball, or he's a tight end coach at the Green Bay Packers. He always comes up with something, and it's gonna be an unscouted look. It's gonna be an unscouted play, and 9 times out of 10, it's successful. Andy's going to be a Hall of Famer. There's no doubt about it. What he's done in Philadelphia and what he's done in Kansas City, it's amazing. And he's got a great, brilliant offensive mind. And the guys love to play for him, and he gives the guys input, allows them to have input, and it's really working. It's really working. And it was great to see. I did see that on the Today Show. Great to see that talk between Mahomes and Kelsey. It just talks about some of the things they do off the field. And those are the stories that people really need to hear about the NFL too. It's not, hey, it's not all business. We like to have fun. We like to interact, and those relationships go on and on.
Right. Those guys are great friends off the field. And I think that, that obviously has an impact of their, it impacts the game. And I thought it was kind of a cool story to see. Tell you what else, you talk about you don't understand the NFL and you can't ever predict. I mean, okay, let's travel up to Lambeau Field this past weekend, okay? Frigid, 30 degrees, sub freezing temperatures. Packers,
that was early spring temperatures, Reg. Wintertime in Lambeau is in single digits or below zero.
It looked cold. Rodgers had on the jacket in between tears, so it was cold. So anyway, they've lost 5 in a row. Okay, it's Coach McCarthy's first trip back to Lambeau Field since he got let go in 2018. New team. Okay, I'm thinking the Cowboys going there and beat the brakes off them. Didn't happen. Okay, Green Bay began the week having dropped 5 consecutive games. Things started out kind of poorly. They got off. They trailed the fourth quarter 28-14. And then Rodgers does what he does. He came back and he spoiled McCarthy's return. It was a good win, and it pumped up the fans. It's good to see they ended a 5-game win streak. But I looked at their schedule. I think that was a really good win for them, really good morale win. But I think that's kind of as far as it goes. I mean, in my mind, I think they've dug themselves too far of a hole to come out of it based on.
Well, Reg, a couple things that stood out in that ball game. I guess there's a new receiver up there in Green Bay, isn't there?
Christian Watson, guy. He ain't bad. That? He ain't bad. The receiver.
Oh yeah.
Christian Watson.
Yeah. He had his coming out party, which was great to see.
Yeah.
But let's talk about where they're really at. The Packers. It's tough. There have been 4 teams in the history of the NFL that have lost 4 in a row that have gone to the playoffs. That's it. In the history of the NFL that have lost 4 in a row that have gone to the playoffs. The 1992 Chargers, who started out 0-4, ended up going 11-5 and making the playoffs, but they lost in the second round.
Yep.
The 2002 Raiders lost 4 in a row between week 6 and 9, and then they lost to Tampa, John Gruden's team, the Tampa Bay Bucks in 2002. The Giants have done it twice, Reg, and you and I are part of this history, unfortunately. In 2006, the Giants dropped 2 of their first 3 and had a 4-game losing streak and go on and make the playoffs. And I believe they won the Super Bowl that year. And then in 2008, okay?
Yeah.
Remember, we went up to New York, and they had lost 4 games in week 10 to 13 at the end of the season. Everybody thought they just limped in. The NFC East was terrible. We were a wild card. We had to go. We had a much better record. We were 12-4. They were 9-7, and we went up there and laid an egg.
Yeah.
And they beat us. We didn't play well. So I don't think it happens. Now, with 17 games, maybe somebody can lose 5 in a row and break, and go to the playoffs. But I don't know, man. I really don't know. They've got to finish with the Titans, the Eagles, the Bears, the Rams, the Dolphins, the Vikings, and the Lions.
That's
the underdogs in 5 of the 7 games that they got to play.
Yeah.
So it's it's a uphill battle. It might be like riding a bike up Pikes Peak.
Yeah. That'd be hard.
It'd be hard. And maybe they can get this thing turned around. They may have found a great combination of throwing the ball, but You never tell, but the cream comes to the crop through a 16, 17 game season, as we all
Yeah.
know.
Well, I like what you talked about the young receiver. He had early in the year, we'll actually go back during training camp. Rodgers had this whole thing where every year he beats up the receivers during training camp. I mean, he's been doing that his whole career. First game of the year, I think it might have been the first or the second place during their first game they were on Fox. He's wide open on a post route and he drops the ball. And Rodgers, all during training camp, there were all these stories coming out of Green Bay about how, he's beating up the receivers. They didn't know what to do. They don't know the snap count. Didn't know where to go. He says, you guys need to pull it together. And then I forget one of the receivers who played there. I think it might have been Donald Driver. Somebody was saying, hey, this is what he does. This happens. Forces you to grow up early. And this kid Watson's had some issues. He's very talented. He's very fast. But he's had some drops. He's been injured. But you're right. He had a coming out party. I mean, the guy's fast, and he made the adjustment that he made on that long ball for the touchdown was a pretty good adjustment and a great catch. So if they can get that going and kind of get some of those other pieces going, I mean, they've been beat up on the offensive line. Hurts got some other key guys hurt. If they can kind of get that going, they can kind of start doing some building for next year. But I'm not sure it's going to be in the cards for them to be in the tournament this year based on how big a hole.
It's going to be tough as I mentioned earlier. It is, but it's great to see the young receiver start to catch the ball. Watson, that was a tough start in game one, but it was a coming out party. He's long, he's lean, he can run. Maybe they found another great receiver for Aaron Rodgers to put the ball on, because he's a big target and he's fast, and it'll be interesting to see. And they're going to probably be throwing the ball a lot, as we mentioned, with who they've got going, and they're being an underdog in 5 of their 7. So playing some good ball. They're playing some good ball teams.
Yeah, they do. The one team we didn't kind of talk about was we talked about how the Packers ended their stop the slide and they beat the Cowboys. But the Cowboys to me are a little bit of an enigma. I mean, they're really, really good one week, and the next week we're talking about how Kansas City's got all that metronome-like consistency, how well they play. But you don't see that. You don't think consistency when you're talking about the Cowboys. They'll play good for a couple of weeks, 2 weeks, and then they kind of fall off the cliff. What's your thought? What's your thought on them, and why haven't they been able to get into any kind of consistent rhythm? I mean, I know they play in one of the toughest divisions in football, but they spend a lot of money. They are America's team, and I think people's expectations of them are a little bit higher than what they're playing to, Mike. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the Dallas Cowboys get overanalyzed. They are America's team. I mean, Everybody's talking about them every week. They don't get a break. And that's just the way it is. I mean, they're the most popular team in the NFL. They get the best windows. When I say windows, the broadcast windows to be seen, because everybody wants to see him and watch him play and talk about him. And they are, Reggie, playing in the toughest division in all of football. And that brings up a good point for me to discuss with you. We've gone to this 17-game schedule. This is the second year of it. Now, with the 17-game schedule, we could potentially have all 4 teams from one division in the playoffs. And right now, if you look at it, the NFC East, they're beast. There's no doubt about it. And it's not out of the realm that all 4 teams in the NFC East make the playoffs. Just think about it. The Eagles, with the Eagles lost, now they only have a half-game lead over the Giants. Here's the team that we're talking about, maybe going 16-0, going undefeated. Nobody expected them to lose. They lose their first game to the 4th best team in the division, and now they only got a 1-game lead over the. Now they only got a 1-game lead, and they've got a 3-game lead over the last place team. So from 1 to 3,
Right.
the Redskins are only 3 games out.
Got a first.
Season. There's been a lot of teams that have come back from 3 games out.
Yeah.
This could happen.
That would be
the NFL season this year. It would be a first because it couldn't happen when you'd only had 6 teams going.
Yeah.
Now you got 7.
Right.
We could have the NFC East
could be in the playoffs.
4 teams in the playoffs if the ball falls and the games fall the right way. The Redskins could get in. I think 3 of them are going for sure. I think I think the Cowboys, Giants, and Eagles are in.
Right.
And if the Redskins play pretty good ball coming down the stretch, they got a really good chance. It could be the first time in history that all 4 teams from one division are in the playoffs. Well, easy travel.
It would be easy travel. It'd be easy travel. And I tell you what, okay, Ron Rivera, who I think is as underrated as a coach as there is in football. I think he's really, really smart. I think his guys love to play for him. I got guys who work in Carolina, who worked in Carolina when he was there. Matter of fact, Teddy worked there when he was. I think he was. Well, no, he wasn't there. But I've got other guys who worked there, who've worked for Coach Rivera over his career, and they all rave about. Not only is he a really good defensive coach, but he's a good person. He's a really good person to play for. A really good person, which is important, obviously. But they went into that game last night with a lot of damn confidence. They really did. They were playing with a lot of confidence. And I'm thinking, okay, you go in there. Going to Philadelphia when you got a good team is a tough order. That's hard. The fans. Mike, many times we went to Philadelphia. It's a tough crowd. This is a place where they boo Santa Claus. Routinely they boo Santa Claus.
Oh yeah.
And for them to go in there and win that game, they played really good on defense. They ran up for 150 plus yards. The quarterback didn't make many mistakes. He was accurate with the football. Throwing the long ball. So hey, look, you might be right. We might have 4 teams. The entire NFC East in the playoffs. We might have 2 1,000-yard receivers. That's the beauty of this league, and that's the beauty of our game. In that every week it's theater, it's drama, and that's why people tune in. That's why the ratings are through the roof. That's why the ratings are 5 times what baseballs are, or 6 times what the NBA's are. That's why the league is in the position that it's in.
Being a Dallas Cowboy and playing for the Cowboys, it's tough. You're living under a microscope. There's no doubt about it, Reggie. And that's why they're called America's team. But we'll get to see what happens here the last 7 weeks of the regular season and see if the games fall that way. It would be interesting to see all 4 in the playoffs.
I think it'd be great. I think it'd be great for football. I think it'd be something. People would be talking about it for 2 or 3 weeks. The weeks leading up to the playoffs. If you've got all 4 teams in the playoffs, you would have TV crews at every one of those complexes. Not just because they're in the playoffs, but the whole story would be the NFC East. It's number one because it's never been done before, and then we'll talk about the resurgence of the NFC East, and then think of the market, think of the TV.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. You think of the eyes that that watch the NFC East, and that's one of the reasons too that the Cowboys are so popular is that when you look at the New York market, the Philadelphia market, the Washington market, and the Dallas market. All top
television.
Yes.
That's a huge thing. So that would be, and plus, and the interesting part, if all 4 qualified, you got 4 really good teams. They all do stuff differently, but if they all qualify and get there, that means that they've had great seasons and they get there. And you know what? When you used to say this all the time to the meeting when we were in Atlanta, once you get into the tournament, anything could happen.
That's right. Everybody's 0-0, man. You're 0-0.
Everybody's 0-0. Yeah. Doesn't matter if you won 13. Doesn't matter if you won 10. Doesn't matter if you won 9. It doesn't matter. Once you get in, anything can happen.
Yeah.
a matter of fact, just to sort of take it a little bit further, you know, this is the same thing, but the Phillies in baseball were the third team in their division, but because of the new baseball parameters that they instituted last year with regard to the playoffs, the Phillies, we were kind of a middling team most of the season. They got hot late, made the playoffs. You know, they wound up going to the World Series. So you know, anything can happen. Once you get in, anything can happen. So, you know, let me just to sort of change gears a little bit. We're talking about teams that, or you're talking about the NFC East. Now we're going to switch a little bit to talk about a little bit of the game that took place in the NFC South between the Falcons and I think it was the Panthers. Wasn't it? The Falcons Panthers. That was early in the week.
Yeah, absolutely. There in Charlotte.
That was a tough game.
Oh, it was a hard one to watch, Reg.
Oh,
you want to talk about quarterback deficiencies? Just watch that game, and then turn around and watch a game played with Patrick Mahomes leading the Chargers or one of these, one of the top quarterbacks in the league. It was tough, and I think it just, for me, watching that ball game, it just magnified with something that we already know. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't really have a chance. I was very fortunate to be on a team to win a Super Bowl that wasn't blessed to have a top ranked quarterback.
Right.
Look at the history of this of Super Bowl wins, and most of the time it comes down to who's got the best quarterback.
Yeah.
Who's got the best quarterback? And right now it's tough to watch some of that NFC South quarterback and accept the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It really is.
Yeah. It's funny. It's just, Carolina, they were trying, Baker Mayfield's hurt now. I read this where he's going to play this week. And then, Mariota, they're talking about now, should the Falcons, maybe give the guy they drafted, Desmond Ridder. I forget where he played college.
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
Bearcat. Yeah, played for Cincinnati Bearcats.
Yeah. I know he threw up a lot of big numbers his senior year. He played really, really well. And obviously, the Falcons liked him enough to invite him, and he's there. I mean, but the backup quarterback's always the most popular guy in the building until he gets out there and I mean, playing quarterback in the NFL. What's that, Mike?
He's the most popular guy until he gets out there and stubs his toe.
Yeah. I mean, this ain't like you putting him out at offensive line or someplace on the field where you can hide him. This is, every time the offense moves, he's got the ball. He's got to do something with it. So, do you think it's time now that they maybe take a look at that?
Marcus Mariota has had some success in the NFL. And they're still, the Falcons are still mathematically in it. They're right there. I mean, the NFC South isn't very good, as we've mentioned multiple times, but they've got to make a decision based on what's going to get them to the playoffs this year. And Mariota has some, he has some signature wins in his career. Not a whole lot. And, if you were ranking him, he probably would not be in the top half of quarterback rankings in the NFL, and this year included. And, it's hard to win and win consistently and get on a run in the playoffs without that guy that's touching the ball every play, playing at a high level. And I tell you, the guy, the guy that played this week for the Panthers, it was a great story. Played at Temple, USFL or one of those leagues that's come and gone.
Right.
He came in and he's done some things, but I mean, it's been musical chairs there in Carolina.
Yeah, it has been.
If you don't have, if you got two quarterbacks, usually that means you got none. If you're trying to play both of them, that's what it means to me in the NFL. If you're never really blessed, there's not teams that are blessed to have two great quarterbacks on their roster. Usually if two of them are playing throughout the season and it's not injury related,
Right.
you don't have a quarterback. And if
Yeah.
you don't have a quarterback, you got an uphill battle.
You can't win. Well, it's almost it's a little bit like with my Saints. We sometimes do that thing where we play we play the guy, the Swiss Army knife guy. You know what I mean? What's his name?
Tyson Hill, but I believe they've moved on from him, haven't they?
They've moved up every night during the games. During the game, sometimes he lines up. As a quarterback, it's strictly just a run, but he's not really throwing it anymore. He had a game this year where he kind of threw a couple passes and stuff, but I think people have kind of figured it out. But they experimented a little bit with him trying to be a quarterback. It didn't work. They've got Jameis, who's kind of up and down. He's hurt, and Coach Allen basically hinted this morning that he and his coaching staff are going to look at it all day. But I think tomorrow they make the announcement, or maybe they don't make it. But I think Jameis starts this Sunday, wherever they play.
He's been banged up, right?
Yeah.
He's been banged up. Very talented player, Jameis.
Yeah.
James Winston's a very talented player, and he can make all the throws and all that. And I hate to say this, but Reg, the way they've been playing, they got to make a change somewhere, right? They got to do something to try to change up the mojo. And usually when they beat around the bush and don't really come out and say who's going to be the quarterback, there's probably a change coming. And they've gone back and forth this season because of injuries. And if you don't have consistency at the quarterback position, you're not going to win. And right now they haven't had consistency. That's why you're going to be buying me dinner at the end of the season.
You hit your man where it hurts. That's so.
Oh, I know. I'm hitting you, but I got to. When I got a shot, I got to take it.
I'm going to ask you a question later about you. You were talking about your pocket. I just want to get the update on the transaction that took place with you and Coach Johnson last month on the golf course. We got to get an update on how that went.
Well, it wasn't pretty.
You're 0 for 2 with Coach
Johnson.
You're 0 for 2?
Hey, we had a lot riding on the 18th hole, and I was able to bet my way back in and win.
Okay.
Hey, the Chinese laundry was open. I was pressing the whole back nine. But sometimes you can press your way to a win. Just keep doing those bets.
Hey, someone on this call told me once, got to be able to improvise and adjust.
That's right, man. That's right. Hey, so
let me ask you this. We're talking about quarterbacks. Let's talk about the quarterback in Minnesota a little bit. Okay, Minnesota's 8-1. Everybody keeps saying, he's a game manager. He's, when you look at him play, and you go, it's like I'm gonna put him in the same box that I defended my man Jalen Hurts in. Okay, you're 8-1. They're both quarterbacks of 8-1 teams, but they're also, those two guys are two of the most maligned quarterbacks for a lot of reasons. Okay, Jalen's maligned for a couple of different reasons. Kurt's maligned for whatever he's maligned for. But the bottom line is they're both 8-1. So let me ask you this: with the creativity that Minnesota's got on offense, and for them to play just a little bit better on defense, and I mean, they've got some players on defense, and they're 8-1. Could Cousins with his skill set and with the way they run it, and specifically the way they are on offense, they could get to the Super Bowl with Kirk. I believe in my core they could get there with Kirk Cousins as well. As this guy threw for 357 yards on the road on Sunday. Okay.
Yeah, hey, 3 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, something, when Kirk Cousins' contract was up, I think for a minute he was the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Or in the top 5, and that changes every year. Yeah. But he's a darn good quarterback, and he is thriving right now in the system that they have put in place up there in Minnesota. There's no doubt about it. As I mentioned to you earlier, they've got it going on offensively with Kevin O'Connell, and Kirk Cousins, and he's being, the way they're handling him, it's been interesting to watch because they've changed the culture. There's different styles of coaching, and he's really taken to this style of coaching that Coach Kevin O'Connell has, and it's quarterback-friendly offense. He's able to get in there and get into a rhythm, and you can win with Kirk Cousins at quarterback and win a Super Bowl. I don't think there's any doubt that can happen. But there's always going to be some naysayers, and there's going to be people that don't like the style that a quarterback plays. And you're seeing that about Jalen Hurts. And I haven't read the paper this morning, but I'm sure that there's a bunch of people, analyzing that. He hadn't thrown any interceptions. Going into the game, he'd only thrown 2, and oh Lord, he's gave the ball up 3 times last night.
It wasn't him now. Okay, it wasn't him. He had one bad throw, and it really wasn't a bad throw. The safety made a really good play.
He made a good play on the ball, and he
made a good play on the ball.
Yeah, early in the down, he thought that he was going to have single coverage, and he threw into double coverages. And that happens. But it's hard. It is hard to win a game in the NFL, and to think that somebody's going to go 17-0. It'll be an anomaly. It will be an anomaly. We may be talking about this, and our siblings and their siblings and their siblings will be talking about, the 1972 Miami Dolphins going undefeated in the regular season. Don't think it, that may be a record that may never get broken. I'll go out on a limb and say that maybe in our lifetime, in my lifetime, don't see it happening.
We're going to finish up here in a little bit, Coach. You're on the PR Man, the Coach Talking Ball on the BallFather podcast presented by Sportskeeda. Let's switch gears a little bit, talk about the college football season. I was talking to some guys the other day they were asking me, they were saying, hey, why is it that the Southeastern Conference tends to dominate ball, specifically, Georgia, Alabama, why is that? And I was telling them, I said, well, I said, I'm kind of prejudiced because I grew up in the South, obviously, but I'm a little prejudiced from the perspective that I just think the players are better. I think the programs are better. And I looked at Kirby Smart, what Kirby Smart's done at Georgia since he got there. Okay, I think he's been there 6 or 7 seasons. I think they've won. I think they're 77-15, something like 77-15-1, or some outrageous number. I mean, they're and he's got that program playing at such a high level. They're undefeated right now. Ohio State's playing good, although they've not played as well this year. Michigan's in the discussion. What are your thoughts, Mike, about that? I mean, do you think the coronation, Georgia gets coronated again, wears the crown of college football again, or will they get some strong resistance from Michigan, Ohio State, and whoever else is in the top 5, whoever's going to make the tournament? What's your thoughts on that?
Gosh, it's so hard to say. Let me say this about the SEC. It's head and shoulders above any other division, top to bottom. And I when I say what conference is the best, top to bottom, it's the SEC. I mean, there's probably 6 teams in the SEC that are rated in the top 20 in the nation. They're head and shoulders. Now, is there a team or two at a couple of the other big conferences that could play in the SEC? Maybe, but they're not going to go undefeated like these Alabama teams of the last few years and this Georgia team. It's just not going to happen. Could they beat it? Could an Ohio State and a Michigan or a TCU that's undefeated right now beat them one time? Absolutely. Anything can happen on any given day. But from top to bottom, if you put some of these other conference champions in the SEC, they're not gonna make a run like Georgia's making the last 2 years, or like Alabama has made for the last 6 or 7, or even a Clemson team. But hey, that's grown man football that they're playing in the SEC.
It is.
Minus Vanderbilt. That's not grown man football. They just don't have, they don't have a chance. But from top to bottom. So, I think that I don't follow college football, Reggie, as close as I do as the NFL. And they're trying to find their way with this NIL and things like that are going on. And I really believe that there's going to be lots of changes in the next 5 to 10 years, and it may even be quicker than that. But I see college football turning into the same model as the NFL. We're not going to have the SEC. We're not going to have the Big 12. We're going to have divisions, and why not do it with 48 or 64 teams? This NIL thing it's a game changer. Really, Reg, how many teams in college football have the ability to win a national championship on any given year? Maybe 10, but more like 6, maybe, And do you?
I think that's going to be 10, but maybe realistic 4 or 5.
So, and really, those 10 or 6 or 5, they're going to come from the same 30 teams. They're going to. Let me rephrase that. They're going to come from the same 15 teams, and then there's going to be another 20 that are going to filter in and out that are going to be in the bottom half. Why would they want to continue to have to split the money with 108 teams when they can go and put 32 of them, be a loose affiliation, get out of the NCAA, and go keep all that bread?
That's a good point.
I see that happening. I really do. And believe me, it goes even further than that. What about the people that want to get into that club that owns NFL teams? There's only 32 of them, and there's some guys out there that want to get into that club. We're going to see that when Washington has to get sold here, and who's going to be bidding for that.
Right.
They can't get in that club. Why not go get them a college team? Play for a national championship. And on the flip side, this is a little even further out. Maybe the athletic directors want this NIL and they want football to split because they don't have to have the Title IX issues with having women's sports. If football goes out of the NCAA, they don't have all those issues.
You don't have that issue. You're not Title IX because it's just football.
Yeah, it's just, and maybe it's going to be the semi-pro or the next step. But, man, the way they're paying these guys, with these NIL deals, shoot, I might want to stay in college for 7 years. It took me 7 years to graduate. But, hey, if I'm a good player, I'm gonna stay there. I'm making more than I'm going to make in a rookie contract if I'm not a first or second round pick.
I tell you, it's interesting. It's a great discussion, and we can leave it here and pick it up next week. But we could, I'm gonna do a little research about what's going on with that because I've got a buddy of mine who was a longtime NFL public relations man, 25 years. He's now left his company that he's working. He left the NFL to go do some work with a private company in the DC, Virginia area, and he's now started a new company where he's working on NIL stuff for athletes.
Well, Reg, we need to do that because I've got some ideas about how this has all come about, and we could do a whole show on the NIL if you wanted to.
I think
It's one man's opinion, though.
Yeah, well, that's what our podcast is. It's two guys' opinion. Yeah. What we should do is I'll talk to him. And I'll get some notes and we'll put something together. We'll add this. We'll just add this segment to our show next week. We'll do that.
Yeah, we'll do it, man. Hey, I think the people that are watching, they've got interest. Hey, it's not it's just not NFL football because you can't say it's just not pro football because right now them boys are getting paid. Getting paid well.
They're getting. It is a game changer. But I've not seen anybody really. Nope. Right. I haven't seen anybody.
Nobody wants to talk about it, Reg. right now because they don't know where they don't know what direction we're going.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's gonna play out. Look, if you're at Alabama and you're the president,
yep.
do you want to be splitting money with other teams that have no chance of winning a national championship?
No, absolutely.
It doesn't make sense. Doesn't make business sense, does it?
No, poor business sense. That makes no business. If you're there every year because the good Lord's blessed you with resources and a good team and good athletes and great coaches, why should you split your money with Vanderbilt?
Yeah.
Why should you do that?
Well, Reg, hey, it's been a good chat. I'd love to cut it up, man. Let's do it again soon.
Look forward to it, Coach. Thank you, man. We appreciate you. We'll be back next week on the PR Man to Coach talking ball on the ball for the podcast presented by Port Sportskeeda. We'll check in with the coach next week and we'll do it again. All right, man.
All right, man.
Have a great one.
Have a good one, buddy.